What if I told you that the greatest battles you will ever face won't be fought with swords or shields, but with thoughts, memories, and whispers that rise up inside you? What if I told you that before every breakthrough, before every calling, before every moment, God invites you into something bigger, a giant will appear? And what if I told you that the very first giant every person must face is the giant called fear? Fear is ancient. Fear is loud, fear is convincing, and fear shows up at the exact moment God calls you forward. To understand this giant, we have to step into one of the most dramatic scenes in Scripture. The Israelites have just escaped Egypt. They have seen God break the back of an empire. They have watched the Red Sea split open. They have walked through walls of water with dry ground beneath their feet. They have eaten bread that fell from the sky. They have followed a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. They have every reason to trust God. And now, after all of that, they stand at the edge of the promised land, the land God promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land where their destiny begins. But before they enter, God instructs Moses to send 12 spies, one from each tribe. These weren't random men, these were leaders, warriors, men respected by their tribes, men chosen because they were supposed to see what God had promised and come back with faith. Among them were Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim and Caleb from the tribe of Judah, two men whose hearts burned with courage, two men who believed God's promise more than their own eyes. The spies traveled for 40 days. They walked through vineyards so large they had to carry a single cluster of grapes on a pole between two men. They saw fertile fields, flowing streams, and cities fortified with massive walls. Everything God promised was true. But then, they saw the giants, the Anakim, descendants of the Nephilim, warriors whose shadows swallowed the ground, men so tall, so strong, so terrifying that the spies felt their courage drain from their bones. And when they returned to the camp, 10 of them spread fear like wildfire. "We saw giants there," they said. "We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in theirs." That sentence reveals the true nature of fear. Fear doesn't begin with the size of the giant. Fear begins with the size of your self-image. Fear begins with the story you tell yourself about yourself. Fear begins with the belief that you are small, powerless, insignificant. Fear begins with the lie that your giant is bigger than your God. But Joshua and Caleb saw something different. They saw the same giants, they walked the same land, they heard the same reports, but they spoke a different truth. If the Lord delights in us, He will bring us into this land. Do not fear the giants. This is the first twist in the story. The giants were real, the danger was real, the threat was real, but the fear was a lie. Giants don't fall because you are strong. Giants fall because God is with you. But the people didn't listen. They let fear speak louder than faith. They let the giant in their mind become bigger than the God who walked with them. And because of that, an entire generation missed their destiny. How did it happen? How does an entire generation lose what God promised them? It wasn't because the giants were too strong. It wasn't because the land was too dangerous. It wasn't because God changed His mind. They missed their destiny because they believed the wrong voice. Fear doesn't just intimidate. Fear delays. Fear distracts. Fear destroys. Fear convinces you to settle for a life smaller than the one God designed for you. And so God told them they would wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for every day the spies explored the land. Not because God was cruel, but because the people refused to believe Him. They chose fear over faith. They chose safety over destiny. They chose the wilderness over the promise. But here's the twist most people never see. The giants weren't the real threat. The giants were afraid of Israel long before Israel was afraid of them. We learn this later in the book of Joshua when Rahab tells the spies, "Our hearts melted when we heard what your God did at the Red Sea. Your giant is more afraid of you than you are of it." Fear is loud because fear is desperate. Fear shouts because fear knows what will happen if you ever step forward. Fear knows what will happen if you ever believe. Fear knows what will happen if you ever realize who you are in God. Fear knows that if you ever take one step toward your calling, it's over. But the Israelites couldn't see it. They believed the lie. And so they wandered. But God didn't abandon them. God didn't reject them. God didn't give up on them. God walked with them in the wilderness. God fed them. God protected them. God waited for the next generation to rise, a generation that would believe him. And that brings us to what happened next. 40 years later, Joshua, the same Joshua who once stood against the fear of the crowd, now leads the people. And the first thing he does is send 2 spies into Jericho. This time, the spies are not 12, they are 2. Joshua learned from the past. He sent men who would see with faith, not fear. These 2 spies entered Jericho and met Rahab, a woman whose past was broken but whose faith was bold. She hid them from the king's soldiers. She protected them at the risk of her own life, and she told them something that changed everything. We have heard what your God did at the Red Sea. Our hearts melted. The giants are terrified of you. The spies returned to Joshua with a message the previous generation never heard. The Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. This is the moment the story turns. The generation that once trembled now stands with courage. The people who once ran now march forward. The nation that once feared giants now watches giants fall. And that brings us to the revelation moment of episode 1. Giants fall when God stands with you. He stands with you in the valley. Psalm 23, verse 4. He stands with you in the wilderness. Deuteronomy 31:6. He stands with you at the edge of the promise. Joshua 1:9. He stands with you when fear rises. Isaiah 41:10. He stands with you when the giant roars. 1 Samuel 17:45. He stands with you when your knees shake. Psalm 56:3. He stands with you when your voice trembles. Exodus 4:12. He stands with you when you feel small. Judges 6:14. He stands with you when you feel unqualified. 1 Corinthians 1:27. He stands with you when you feel overwhelmed. Psalm 61:2. And when God stands with you, giants fall. This is the beginning of your journey. This is the first giant. This is the first victory. This is the first step into the land God promised you. Fear is loud. Fear is intimidating. Fear is ancient. But fear is not God. Fear is not truth. Fear is not your future. Your future belongs to the one who calls you forward. Your future belongs to the one who fights for you. Your future belongs to the one who says, "Do not fear, I am with you." And that is why giants will fall. If this episode stirred something in you, if it reminded you that you are not alone in your battles, take a moment to like this video and then subscribe. Not for the algorithm, but because every time you do, you help this message reach someone who is standing in front of their own giant right now. Someone who needs courage, someone who needs hope, someone who needs to know that God is with them. And trust me, episode 2 is going to take us even deeper. This is just the beginning. The giants are real, but so is your God, and in this series, giants will fall.